Be me, just a regular guy. Have a job, pay the bills, try to keep things simple. Married for a few years now. Thought things were pretty normal, you know? My wife, she's great in some ways, but she got really into online articles and social media stuff over the last couple of years. The kind of stuff that has a lot of buzzwords. Every other day there's a new concept I'm apparently guilty of without knowing it. I used to just laugh it off, try to be a good sport. It's easier to just agree and move on than to have a 3-hour debate over dinner. But one particular thing started to become a major theme. A hill she was apparently willing to die on. Manspreading. I'd never even heard the term before she brought it up. It started subtly. We'd be watching a movie on the couch. I'd be sitting there, comfortable after a long day at work. She would shift pointedly, making a little huffing sound. I'd ask what's wrong. She'd say, "Nothing," but in that tone that means it's definitely something. Then, one evening, she finally laid it all out. I came home, tossed my keys in the bowl, and plopped down on the sofa. I just wanted to watch some sports highlights and shut my brain off for an hour. She walked in, stood there with her arms crossed, holding her phone like it was a sacred tablet. She told me we needed to have a serious talk about the space I occupy. I had no idea what she was talking about. Did I need to clean the garage? No, she meant my physical presence. She said the way I was sitting was a classic example of patriarchal entitlement, that I was manspreading and subconsciously asserting my dominance in our shared space. I just looked at her, then at my legs. I was just sitting, like a person sits. I tried to explain that it's just a comfortable position. It's how my hips are built. It's not a political statement. This was a mistake. She launched into a full-blown lecture. It was all about the historical context of men taking up space and women being taught to make themselves smaller. She said my comfort was a product of societal programming. I was tired. I didn't want to fight. So I did what I always did. I gave in. I pulled my knees together until they were touching. It felt weird, unnatural, like I was bracing for something. She gave a satisfied little nod, as if she'd just successfully trained a disobedient dog. "See? It's not that hard to be considerate," she said, before going back to her phone. I sat there for the rest of the night, my legs clamped together, feeling like an idiot. This became the new normal. Every time I sat down, her eyes would flick towards my legs, a silent reminder, a constant correction. In the car, she'd comment on it. "You're taking up more than your share of the legroom." At restaurants, she'd kick me under the table if my knee so much as drifted into the neutral zone. I felt like I was constantly being monitored, graded on my posture. It was exhausting, but I kept telling myself it was a small price to pay for peace. I love her, and if this little thing made her happy, then whatever. I could deal with it. The real turning point, the moment something inside me just snapped, happened a few months ago. It was a Saturday afternoon. We were on a video call with a couple of her friends, the kind of friends who use the same buzzwords she does. They all seemed to get their opinions from the same 5 websites. They were all talking about a trip we took last summer. My wife was sharing pictures from her phone to the screen. There were photos of mountains, lakes, the usual stuff. Then a picture of me popped up. I was sitting on a park bench, waiting for her while she was in a gift shop. I was just relaxing in the sun, sitting normally, comfortably. My wife let out a little laugh. She pointed at the screen. "Oh, you guys have to see this one. Exhibit A," she said to her friends. "This is what I live with. The audacity. King of the whole bench." Her friends laughed, that hollow, polite but judgmental laugh. Then she delivered the line that changed everything. "He's my little reclamation project. I'm slowly but surely deconstructing the patriarchy, one husband at a time." They all laughed again, harder this time. I was sitting on the other side of the room, pretending to read a book. I heard every word, A reclamation project. That's what I was. Not a partner, not a husband. A project. Something broken that she needed to fix to prove a point to her friends. All those little corrections, the constant nagging, the lectures. It wasn't about us. It was about her. It was a performance. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, feeling the pages of the book under my fingers. A strange kind of calm washed over me. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. The war was over because I wasn't going to fight anymore. I was going to surrender, unconditionally. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. The next morning, the new regime began. I woke up, got ready for work. We sat down for breakfast. I made sure to sit perfectly straight. My knees pressed so tightly together they might as well have been fused. My legs started to ache after 5 minutes. She noticed, of course. She gave me that same smug, satisfied smile. "Good morning. Glad to see someone is starting the day with consideration." I just nodded and kept eating my cereal. The first test came when I was about to leave for work. She asked me about my big meeting that day. Normally, I would have told her the details, who was going to be there, what the challenges were, maybe vent a little about my boss. I'd take up some conversational space. This time, I just said, "It's at 10. She waited, expecting more. I just looked at her. "Have a good day," and walked out the door. I could feel her confused stare on my back. When I came home that evening, the experiment continued. She asked me how the meeting went. "It went fine," I said, taking off my shoes. "Just fine? Did you get the new account?" "Yes." "Well, what did they say? Was it a tough negotiation?" "No." I went to the kitchen to get a glass of water. She followed me. "You're being very quiet tonight. Is something wrong?" "No, I'm fine, just tired." I wasn't being rude. I wasn't being cold. My tone was perfectly neutral. I was just being economical with my presence. I was making myself smaller. The next few days were more of the same. My physical posture was impeccable. I sat like I was a guest in my own home, afraid to take up too much room. My verbal posture followed suit. Every question was met with the shortest, most direct answer possible. I stopped offering opinions. "What should we have for dinner?" she'd ask. "Whatever you feel like making," I'd reply. "I don't know what I feel like. What are you in the mood for?" "I don't have a preference." "Okay, Chinese or Italian?" "You choose." The first time, she seemed to enjoy the control. She got to pick everything without any debate. By the fourth or fifth time, a line of frustration appeared between her eyebrows. It was the same with watching TV. She'd ask what I wanted to watch. "I don't mind. Put on whatever you like." She would scroll through the streaming service for 10 minutes, sighing dramatically. "Can't you just pick something?" She'd finally snap. "I'm happy to watch whatever you select," I'd say, my voice calm and even. I wasn't fighting her. I was agreeing with her. I was ceding the space to her. It was her decision to make. The house started to get very, very quiet. I realized how much of the ambient noise of our life was me. Me telling a stupid story about my commute. Me commenting on the news. Me asking about her day, and then asking follow-up questions. Me sharing some interesting fact I read online. I had stopped doing all of it. My thoughts and my voice were also taking up space. So I reduced them. She was the one who started to fill the silence. She would talk and talk, telling me about her work, about drama with her friends, about some infuriating article she read. I would sit there, my knees together, looking at her and nodding. I would make affirming noises. "I see. Okay. But I never offered advice. I never asked a probing question. I never shared a related experience of my own. I was a perfect, passive audience. After about a week of this, she really started to unravel. She was becoming agitated. The silence was getting to her. She needed engagement. She needed a reaction. She started trying to provoke me. One night she came home in a terrible mood. She started complaining about her boss, and then somehow the conversation turned to me. She said I never helped enough around the house. I feel like I do all the emotional labor and the physical labor in this relationship, she said, her voice rising. Old me would have defended myself. I would have listed all the chores I did that week. We would have argued. New me just looked at her and said, I understand. I will try to do more. Her face went blank. It was like she was a boxer throwing a punch and hitting nothing but air. She stumbled. That's it? That's all you have to say? I heard you, I said. You feel the division of labor is unfair. I will increase my share. I wasn't being sarcastic. My delivery was completely sincere. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. She didn't know what to do. The argument she was gearing up for had vanished. She just shook her head and walked out of the room. The dynamic in our home had fundamentally shifted. I was no longer a project to be fixed. I had been fixed. I was compliant. I was quiet, unobtrusive, and small. I took up the absolute minimum amount of space required for a human to exist in a house, and she was miserable. She started to complain that we never talked anymore. We talk? I'd say. You're talking right now, and I'm listening. No, this isn't talking. This is me talking at you. You never tell me anything anymore. I feel so alone. I had the perfect response ready. I'm sorry you feel that way. I'm trying to be more considerate and not dominate the conversation. I'm trying to leave more space for your voice to be heard. I was using her own language against her, and because the logic was hers, she couldn't refute it. It was a perfect trap. She was trapped in the world she had designed. She was getting exactly what she asked for, and it was driving her insane. She would try different tactics. Sometimes she would be overly affectionate, trying to get a genuine emotional response from me. I would accept the hug, but I wouldn't initiate. Sometimes she would cry, hoping to trigger my sympathy. I would hand her a tissue and say, "It's okay to feel your emotions." I was a gray rock, a polite, agreeable, useless wall. I was present in body, but my spirit, my personality, the part of me that took up space, it was gone. I had packed it away. I was living as a ghost in my own home. And the person who was most haunted by it was her. The final act of this whole charade was set in motion when she decided to invite her sister and her husband over for dinner. This was her last desperate move. She thought that maybe in front of other people, I would be forced to act normal again. She thought social pressure would break me. "They're coming over Saturday night," she announced, "and I need you to be present. I need you to engage. Can you please, just for one night, be the man I married?" I looked at her with my calm, neutral expression. "Of course," I said. "I will be a gracious host." She had no idea what she was in for. She thought she was winning. She thought this was the end of my little game. But it was just the beginning of the grand finale. The day of the dinner arrived. I did my part. I helped clean the house, went to the grocery store, and prepped the vegetables. I was efficient, quiet, and helpful. A model domestic partner. My wife seemed to relax a little. She probably thought my phase was over. She put on a nice dress, did her makeup. She was trying to project an image of a happy, successful couple. "How do I look?" she asked, doing a little spin in the living room. The old me would have said something like, "You look amazing," and maybe added a specific compliment about her dress or her hair. The new me simply said, "You look very nice." A flicker of disappointment crossed her face, but she quickly hid it. The guests would be here any minute. Her sister and brother-in-law arrived right on time. Let's call them Sarah and Tom. Tom's a good guy. We'd always gotten along. We'd talk about cars, football, stupid stuff, an easy friendship. I greeted them at the door. "Welcome. It's good to see you both. Please, come in." I took their coats, my movements precise and formal. Tom clapped me on the shoulder. "Brent, How's it going, man? It's going well, thank you. Can I get you something to drink? I sounded like a butler. Tom gave me a slightly confused look, but asked for a beer. I went to the kitchen, retrieved the drink, and presented it to him. We all settled in the living room. My wife and Sarah started catching up. Tom turned to me, ready for our usual banter. So, did you see the game last weekend? What a crazy ending. Yes, I saw it, I replied. He waited for me to elaborate, to rage about the bad call or celebrate the winning touchdown. I offered nothing. It was quite a game, he prompted, trying to keep the ball rolling. Indeed, I said, taking a small sip of my water. An awkward silence fell between us. My wife shot me a look from across the room. It was a panicked, pleading look. Do something. Be normal. I just gave her a small, polite smile. I was being a perfectly gracious host. Dinner was even worse. My wife had made a roast. She was a good cook, and she was clearly proud of it. She carried the main dish to the table, and everyone made appreciative noises. She sat down, beaming, and looked at me, waiting for me to say something. I said, "The food looks delicious. Thank you for cooking." It was polite. It was correct. But it was devoid of the warmth and personality she was craving. The meal began. For the first 10 minutes, my wife and Sarah carried the conversation. Tom kept trying to include me. Work been busy, Brent? It has been, yes. Anything exciting coming up? The usual projects. It was like trying to play tennis with a brick wall. The ball just kept thudding to the ground. Tom, bless his heart, tried one more time. He turned to the whole table. Brent was telling me a while back about this hilarious thing that happened at his office with the fire drill. You should tell them that story, man. It was classic. All eyes turned to me. My wife was looking at me with desperation. Here's your chance. Tell the story. Save this night. I calmly placed my fork and knife on my plate. I looked at Tom and said, I don't think I should. It takes up a lot of time and it's not that interesting. The silence that followed was deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. Tom just blinked. Sarah looked down at her plate. My wife's smile was frozen on her face, a brittle, cracking facade. She jumped in, laughing a high, nervous laugh. Oh, Brent, he's just being modest. What he means to say is... And then she proceeded to tell the story herself. But it wasn't her story. She got the details wrong. She missed the punchline. It was a disaster. The story landed with a pathetic thud. No one laughed. She looked at me, her eyes begging me to jump in, to save her. I just continued eating my roast. I had ceded that space to her. The story was hers to tell now. I wasn't going to interrupt. The rest of the dinner was agonizing. My wife talked nonstop, a frantic, high-energy monologue trying to fill the void I had created. I simply sat there, a black hole at the dinner table, absorbing all the light and energy in the room and giving nothing back. I was polite. I answered direct questions. I passed the salt. But I was not there. Sarah eventually put her hand on my wife's arm. Are you okay? You seem a little stressed. My wife almost burst into tears. They made their excuses shortly after dinner. It was a lovely meal, Sarah said, giving her sister a worried hug. We should do this again soon. It was a lie, and everyone knew it. Tom shook my hand at the door. He didn't even try to make conversation. He just gave me a long, searching look, then left. The moment the door clicked shut, the dam broke. My wife spun around, her face a mask of fury and humiliation. What was that? She screamed, her voice shaking. What in the world was that? I began calmly collecting the plates from the table. I don't know what you mean, I said. I was a gracious host. A gracious host? A gracious host? You were a robot. You were a zombie. You sat there and said nothing all night. You embarrassed me in front of my own sister. I carried the plates into the kitchen and set them by the sink. I turned to face her. My heart was beating steadily. I felt no anger, no fear, just a profound sense of finality. "I didn't embarrass you," I said, my voice perfectly level. "I did exactly what you've been asking me to do for months." She stared at me, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What are you talking about? I asked you to be normal." "No," I said. "You asked me to stop taking up so much space." I took a step closer. "You started with manspreading. You told me my physical presence was too large, too assertive, so I made myself smaller. I squeezed myself into the smallest possible physical form to make you comfortable." Her angry expression began to falter as she listened. "But I realized that wasn't enough," I continued. "My opinions also take up space, don't they? My stories, my thoughts, my jokes, they fill the air. They demand attention. They dominate the conversation." I gestured back towards the dining room. "So I stopped that, too." I made my voice smaller. "I gave you all the conversational space. I left it all for you. Tonight, you had all the room in the world to talk, to tell stories, to be the center of attention. I was just there to support you quietly." I paused, letting the words sink in. "I gave you exactly what you said you wanted. A man who takes up less space, a man who isn't so dominant, a man who is deconstructed." The realization dawned on her face. It was like watching the sun rise in reverse. The light drained away, replaced by a gray, horrified understanding. Her anger collapsed into a kind of sputtering disbelief. "So, this was all a game? You've been doing this on purpose? To punish me?" "It's not a punishment," I said, and this was the honest truth. "It's an outcome. It's the logical conclusion of your own philosophy. You see, you don't just want a man who takes up less physical space. You want a man who takes up less space in general. You want someone who agrees with you, who doesn't challenge you, who quietly fits into the shape you've designed for him." I walked past her and stood in the doorway of the living room. "You called me your reclamation project. A project's purpose is to be completed. Well, project complete. Here I am, fixed." Tears were streaming down her face now. They weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration, tears of a child who broke her favorite toy and doesn't know how to put it back together. "I hate this," she sobbed. "I hate you like this. I want you back. I want my husband back." I looked at her, and for the first time in weeks I felt a flicker of something. Not love, but a sad kind of pity. "You can't have him back," I said quietly, "because you're the one who sent him away. You wanted a partner who made himself smaller for you. The problem is, you can't respect a man you've made small. You don't actually want an equal partner. You want a rival to conquer, and once you've won, you get bored." I didn't wait for her to respond. I walked over to the couch. Our couch. I sat down. I spread my legs into the most comfortable position I could find. I took up space. I picked up the remote control and turned on the TV. The silence in the house was different now. It wasn't the tense, suffocating silence of the past few weeks. It was just empty. I don't know what's going to happen with our marriage. We're still living in the same house, but it feels like we're 1,000 miles apart. She tries to talk to me sometimes, but I don't know what to say anymore. I'm not playing the game now. I'm just me. And I think she's finally realized that the me she wanted to fix was the only thing holding us together. She wanted a man who took up less space. Now she has a house full of it.